Thank you, Your Honours. Your Honours, the defence's submissions rely heavily upon self-defence. And that's because that's what the thrust of the evidence that was presented to you today, to Your Honours today, indicated. This was a 52-year-old engineer who was buying a bottle of milk at a 7-Eleven that was apprehended by 6 youths, particularly one youth who was running towards him with a brick, and we heard evidence about that. Your Honours, in regards to self-defence, there are 3 elements that need to be proven in relation to murder. The first is that the person believes that the conduct is necessary in self-defence. That's the mens rea element, and that's a subjective test. Second part is that the conduct is a reasonable response in circumstances as the person perceives them. As the person perceives them. And in crime, in subsection 3, we then have, in the case of murder only, if the person, being the accused, Mr. Brown, believed the conduct is necessary to defend the person, Mr. Brown or another, from infliction of death or really serious injury. Your Honours, what we heard was evidence that indicated a scenario whereby somebody was going to be hurt. We heard evidence from Mr. Lackey that he didn't actually see what happened to Mr. Jackson once he turned around. But we heard evidence from Mr. Brown that he was still coming towards him. Even if he was walking, he was still coming up towards him at the moment the gun was shot, putting a fear into the mind of the accused that something was going to happen, that they were at a serious risk of being harmed, and harm from the brick. And when you look at the context of the scenario and of the events, you've got young people jumping on cars, you've got people swearing, yelling, trying to act as tough as they could, as Mr. Lackey said in his evidence in Cross. This creates a scenario of fear, of apprehension, of serious violence, of serious injury, or at the most death. Mr. Brown in his evidence took all he could, did all he could to ensure, to mitigate the situation. He yelled, he tried to stop it, but he took the most reasonable response, and that was to take out the gun. Now, whilst, Your Honours, it may seem on the extreme end, as my friend put it, this was an extreme case. 6 people gaining up on an elderly gentleman in his car alone. So he did what he could in the circumstances. And further that to Your Honour, we also say that the evidence of Mr. Lackey is not credible. And that was clearly illustrated through the numerous inconsistencies between the statement and the evidence she gave during Cross and the evidence she gave in Chief. So we say, okay, have 20 more seconds.